what we've seen here in the United States is it's a little misleading to call it a triumph of capitalism. It's an indication of how radically it's necessary to depart from any capitalist principles in order to maintain privilege. I mean, if we had capitalist principles operating now, the managers of Goldman Sachs would be, panhandling in the streets. Since we don't have a capitalist system, they can run to the nanny state and get bailed out by the taxpayer. That's been happening with greater and greater frequency. This is not the first time. If you look back in the 50s and the 60s, when regulatory systems were still functioning before the breakdown of the Bretton Woods system, financialization of the economy, there weren't any financial crises. And the financial component of the economy was fairly small. It was restricted to pretty much what finance is supposed to do. Take unused funds like your bank account and put it to some productive use. It was the fastest growth period in American or world history, a prolonged period, and pretty egalitarian. Well, that broke down in the 70s. A huge growth of financialization of the economy, hollowing out of production, deregulation. It all set in motion a kind of vicious cycle of concentration of wealth and power. It's true, as you say, that it's the greatest inequality in 100 years, but even that's misleading. Most of the inequality, if you look closely, comes from the top fraction of 1% of the population. Cut that out, it's unequal, but not startlingly different from the past. That's CEOs, hedge fund managers, and so on. They've been able to accumulate a tremendous amount of stratospheric incomes. Capital concentration leads to political concentration, which makes it possible for this tiny sector to introduce governmental policies going on for 30 years. Which have nothing to do with capitalism, but have a lot to do with concentrating wealth and power. In fact, repeatedly, when the system, there have been repeated crashes since the early 80s, and increasing, there'll be another one coming because it's being prepared.